Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Amlet podcast. And on this episode 16, we're reading one of my favorite Indigenous creation stories because of where it comes from. The Cherokee homeland includes much of southern Appalachia, including parts of what is now East Tennessee, western North Carolina, North Georgia, and neighboring regions. For many of us, these mountains are home. We've hiked them, driven through them, and perhaps even grown up among them, like I know I have. If we let it, the Cherokee creation story explains why our mountains look the way they do. Like the Navajo and Iroquois creation stories we've already studied, this narrative invites us to see the landscape as sacred. Mountains, rivers, springs, animals, and even the changing seasons become a part of a larger story about how the world came to be. As you follow along, ponder the following question. I always give you some sort of question to ruminate on, and we'll answer it at the end. How does this story encourage people to see the natural world differently? Before we get started, be sure to have open your copy of the Cherokee creation story and jot down some notes where you think you'll need a reminder later. So here we go. The earth is a great floating island in a sea of water. At each of the four corners, there is a cord hanging down from the sky. The sky is of solid rock. When the world grows old and worn out, the cords will break and the earth will sink down into the ocean. Everything will be water again. All the people will be dead. The Indians are much afraid of this. In the long time ago, when everything was all water, all the animals lived up above in the sacred upper world or the sky vault, beyond the stone arch that made the sky. But it was very much crowded. All the animals wanted more room. The animals began to wonder what was below the water, and at last Beaver's grandchild, little water beetle, offered to go and find out. The little water beetle. What a brave little being. So, like several indigenous creation stories, this one begins with water. Before there are mountains, forests, or any human communities, there is only an immense body of water. The earth is described as a floating island suspended beneath a solid stone sky. The world here is imagined with four great cords holding it all together instead of an endless space. The opening also includes a reminder that one day the cords will break. The earth will sink beneath the water and everything will return to the way it once was. Like other creation stories, too, animals appear before people. They have homes, hold councils, make decisions, and solve problems together. The first volunteer, of course, is a water beetle, so our first explorer is among the smallest creatures instead of some great Western hero. And I love it. So let's continue with the text, and I'll read another paragraph. Water beetle darted in every direction over the surface of the water, but it could find no place to rest. There was no land at all. Then Water Beetle dived to the bottom of the water and brought up some soft mud. This began to grow and to spread out on every side until it became the island which we call the earth. Afterwards, this earth was fastened to the sky with four cords, but no one remembers who did this. So water beetle searches everywhere before finally diving beneath the water. The earth begins with just a single handful of mud. The story suggests that enormous change can begin with surprisingly small acts, and we know that well, as the smallest creature can accomplish what none of the larger animals could. I love the ambiguity of that final sentence of this paragraph. Quote, no one remembers who did this. Even within the creation story, the Cherokee let some details sort of remain mysterious. So let's move into the third paragraph of the Cherokee creation story, and I'll read it. At earth was flat and soft and wet. The animals were anxious to get down, and they sent out different birds to see if it was yet dry, but there was no place to alight. So the birds came back to Sky Vault. Then at last it seemed to be time again, so they sent out Buzzard. They told him to go and make ready for them. This was the great buzzard, the father of all the buzzards we see now. He flew all over the earth, low down near the ground, and it was still soft. When he reached the Cherokee country, he was very tired. His wings began to flap and strike the ground. Wherever they struck the earth, there was a valley. Whenever the wings turned upwards again, there was a mountain. When the animals above saw this, they were afraid that the whole world would be mountains. So they called him back. But the Cherokee country remains full of mountains to this day. This was the original home in North Carolina. So once the earth exists, another problem appears. This land is just sopping wet and it's too soft for animals. The birds become scouts. Like water beetle earlier, they investigate before the rest of creation follows. And finally, great buzzard flies low across the landscape. As his tired wings strike the soft earth, valleys are formed. As they lift again, mountains rise. Therefore, even our Appalachian Mountains, according to the Cherokee, were markings of the wings of a great bird who feeds on the dead. Okay, the concept is delicious, although I know that is not going to be delicious, but I feel that in my heart. So let's keep going into the fourth paragraph. When the earth was dry and the animals came down, it was still dark. Therefore, they got no sun and set it in a track to go every day across the island from east to west, just overhead. It was too hot this way. Red crawfish had his shell scorched a bright red so that his meat was spoiled. Therefore, the Cherokees do not eat it. Then the medicine men raised the sun a hand's breadth in the air, but it was still too hot. They raised it another time, and then another time. At last, they had raised it 7 hands' breadths, so that it was just under the sky arch. Then it was right, and they left it so. That is why the medicine men called the high place the 7th height. Every day the sun goes along under this arch on the underside. It returns at night on the upper side of the arch to its starting place. All right, so here we see the world is not yet complete. We have land, but no light. The animals place the sun directly overhead, and at first this seems like a good solution, right? We both know, though, that it's too close, so it's far too hot to be livable with the sun so close. Then the heat permanently changes red crawfish, altering the meat to the point where Cherokee people traditionally avoid eating crawfish, period. The medicine people repeatedly raise the sun higher. I personally love how creation in this account is an experiment. They decide, they adjust, and they move forward. Only after the sun reaches the 7th height does balance emerge. The number 7 becomes associated with completion and sacred order, unlike the 4 that we saw in the Navajo tradition. So let's continue into the underworld. I'll read what's next. There is another world underneath this earth. It is like this one in every way. The animals, the plants, and the people are the same, but the seasons are different. The streams that come down from the mountains are the trails by which we reach this underworld. The springs at their head are the doorways by which we enter it. But in order to enter the other world, one must fast and then go to the water and have one of the underground people for a god. We know that the seasons in the underground world are different because the water in the spring is always warmer in winter than the air in this world. And in the summer, the water is cooler. I love how empirical observation formed this beautiful, like a metaphor in the poetry of the difference between our world and the underworld and how things are opposite. The Cherokee universe includes a section beneath the earth that looks remarkably similar to this one, but the seasons, of course, are reversed. Springs become entrances and streams are pathways. We're asked to think about this a bit more vertically than horizontally. Water again becomes a place of transition as well. Throughout many indigenous cultures, springs are places where worlds meet, like in the Navajo tradition, you had the crossing of the waters. It's the same concept here, but with the springs. I love how just imaginative the Cherokee have constructed this landscape for us. And so return to the text now to read about the 7 nights. We do not know who made the first plants and animals, but when they were first made, they were told to watch and keep awake for 7 nights. This is the way young men do now when they fast and pray to their medicine. They tried to do this. The first night, nearly all the animals stayed awake. The next night, several of them dropped asleep. The third night, still more went to sleep. At last, on the seventh night, only the owl, the panther, and one or two more were still awake. Therefore, to these were given the power to see in the dark, to go about as if it were day, and to kill and eat birds and animals which must sleep during the night. Even some of the trees went to sleep. Only the cedar, the pine, the spruce, the holly, and the laurel were awake all 7 nights. Therefore, they are always green. They are also sacred trees. But to the other trees it was said, because you did not stay awake, therefore you shall lose your hair every winter. After the plants and the animals, men began to come to earth. At first, there was only one man and one woman. He hit her with a fish. In 7 days, a little child came down to the earth. So people came to the earth. They came so rapidly that for a time it seemed as though the earth could not hold them all. My favorite part about hiking around here is the laurel. So I was so happy to see it included in this final section, explaining why different plants and animals possess the characteristics that they do. And kind of like this everlastingness, or if they're nocturnal for animals. The Creator asks them to remain awake for 7 nights, and only if you succeed. Those that endure receive special gifts. Owls and panthers gain the ability to hunt at night. Evergreen trees remain green through the winter. Nature appears the way it does because of choices made at the beginning of creation, and the Cherokee seem to value perseverance because of those who survive. Those people receive, or not people, but the the plants and animals receive reward because of their perseverance. The creation of humans doesn't arrive until the end closing lines of the story. So unlike many Western creation stories, humans are are not the central focus here for the Cherokee, and even after humanity appears, the story ends with a reminder that the people quickly become numerous. The earth must hold them all, and the responsibility of living within creation has only just begun. So, to recap, remember the defining features of the story lean on the role of animals. Water beetle creates the land, buzzard shapes the mountains, birds scout the earth, Animals persevere, and even the crawfish teaches a lesson about balance, wisdom, agency, and purpose. Nature is the teacher, after all. Next, let's compare the Cherokee's account of the world. Um, it was made with a little bit of a different flavor than the Navajo and the Iroquois. So the Navajos are going to emphasize emergence, right? The Iroquois peoples value cooperation. And in this episode, we can conclude that the Cherokee value the wisdom of animals. Which reminds me of our opening question. How does this story encourage people to see the world differently? The answer, I think, is by inviting us to see the landscape as this repository of memory. Every mountain, stream, tree, and animal participates in a larger narrative about how the world came to be and how people should live within it. Perhaps that's one of the greatest gifts of Indigenous literature because it teaches us to learn from the land, not just how to live on it. So, thank you for listening to this episode of the Amlet podcast. Until next time, stay curious and keep reading. Maybe the next time you drive through the mountains of East Tennessee, you can imagine them as the places where great buzzards' wings first brushed the earth. And so, I will see you soon. And until then, take care.